Hey guys, and welcome back to Life with Iain and Rosie. So today we have a really cool topic. Well, I'm pretty excited to talk about this one, or more so for you to talk about this one. Today we decided to do a podcast on ulcerative colitis, as this is the illness that Iain is dealing with currently and has been dealing with for the past
3 years.
3 years now. So today we thought we'd just talk about it and what he's been through and what it actually is, because I don't think a lot of people actually understand, what's behind the illness and why it comes about. So that's basically what we would like to talk about today. So
what's up, everybody? Welcome back.
So I thought it would be cool to start with just explaining what ulcerative colitis actually is, so you can get a better understanding of what we're talking about. And yeah, so take it away, Iain.
So ulcerative colitis is a autoimmune disease and an inflammatory bowel disease that majority of the time targets the large intestine. And what actually happens, it's very similar to the Crohn's disease, which I think is a lot more popular now, which is actually in the small intestine. So you've got your stomach, which runs into your small intestine and then into your large intestine. Luckily for me, my part, so everyone's ulcerative colitis varies. Mine is luckily in the lower, I think it was 15 to 20 centimeters of my large intestine. Some people get half the intestine, some people get the entire intestine. So in terms of how bad it is for me, it's actually at the best case scenario. I have it at the least part that is kind of known, and yeah, that was weird. The least part that was kind of known, and I think I'm super fortunate to be in that area rather than the entire large intestine, because I think that's quite intense.
So I'm quite familiar with this illness because my grandmother had it and one of my really good friends have got it. So when Iain got diagnosed, I knew exactly what he had been diagnosed with, and I literally can remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember standing there and the doctor had diagnosed him with this after he went in for a biopsy and a colonoscopy and all
which are not fun
stuff.
That's not fun.
And he just so chilled, sitting there waiting for us to pick him up, just turned to us and was like, I have ulcerative colitis. And I literally can remember this feeling. I felt like I wanted to vomit because I just got this overwhelming fear come across me because I knew exactly what you had been diagnosed with. And a lot of the symptoms that I have been familiar with that come along with ulcerative colitis, Iain didn't have. So for us it was kind of like, oh, did they misdiagnose you? You know?
I mean that was always, because also the other big thing is normally it doesn't, it takes a long period of time for you to get over your first flare-up. And for me, it was over within a month.
Yeah, your first run.
Yeah, so I was literally like, okay, well, this guy definitely misdiagnosed me, because everything we're reading, and to anyone, I mean, I've been sent a whole bunch of stuff of people telling me, oh, this is right for ulcerative colitis, or this is right for ulcerative colitis. Every single study and every single thing that I've read for individuals is completely different. I mean,
sure.
Some of the people I was reading, oh, you got to go plant-based. Other people I was reading, oh, you've got to go on a keto diet. Some people were saying a high-fiber diet, and it's just so everywhere. It's no one can really pinpoint exactly what you need to do, besides the fact that you shouldn't be eating gluten and you shouldn't be eating dairy. Those are the two majors that I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of cool with that. But then doing research, and especially after Rosie did so much research, it was like crazy to see how different everyone's perception of this disease is.
Yeah, so let's start. We can get into the whole diet side of it and all the cool stuff that comes with it, but let's just start by explaining exactly what happens when you have a flare-up.
Okay, so what actually happens is mine is definitely due to financial stress in my life, of which recently, with the entire coronavirus happening and everything else, this has now come up where, I've got to dive into my savings and make sure that I have enough money to pay the bills and pay my way and, still keep bodyboarding and put petrol in my car and everything else. So this was obviously quite a high stress situation, especially finances, which I found majority of the time, that's what ends up being my flare-up, is due to financial issues that I'm having. And so what happens is my body literally fights itself. It sends an excess amount of white blood cells into the large intestine, and what ends up happening is the excess amount of white blood cells then lead to ulcers being formed on the inside of my large intestine. And as I've said before, I'm lucky it's just at the end, but any food that then passes over these ulcers then ends up scraping them raw, and you end up having blood in your stool all the time, and never a fun subject to talk about, but you end up having, blood comes out and you end up having blood in your stool and in the bowl, and it's quite a scary thing to, once you finish going to the toilet, to look back and it's just red with blood. It's definitely not something that I was I got used to even in the first year of having this. And so with that comes the urgency of rushing to the toilet and constantly feeling like you need to go even if you don't. And obviously...
And so by urgency, it's urgency.
Yeah, I need to go and I need to go now.
So it's pretty crazy to be just a bystander,
Yeah, and I mean, when it was at its worst, I think I was going to the toilet probably 15 to 20 times a day. And that was, that was probably a decent day. And it's a bit of a crazy situation that I was dealing with and that I am dealing with, and I'm just lucky. I'm very lucky to have Rosie there, who kind of knew, and she researched so much stuff and constantly feeding information and everything else. And yeah, the first one was gone super quickly, and then I realized when the next flare-up came, this thing's here and it's here for real.
So I can remember the first time Iain started talking about his stomach being a bit funny, and I think you were in Hawaii.
Yeah.
But he never mentioned the severity of it. I remember the messages. You were just like, oh, my stomach's a bit funny, it's a bit weird, didn't go into detail. And I thought, okay, well, traveling, drinking different water, eating different food, maybe it's all could contribute to it. Maybe stomach bug, that kind of thing. And that's what we thought it was for the longest time, remember? We thought it was a sort of bacteria or a bug or something you'd picked up while traveling.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy. You don't really think about it, that, eating salads even, and someone's constantly washing the the lettuce leaves, or constantly washing tomatoes in the water that's maybe contaminated, and then you eat that and all of a sudden you got a bug. So that was, for the longest time, we thought, it's got to be a bug of some sort, and that was actually the first diagnosis that I've got from a doctor after the first flare had started, was the doctor here, and we just didn't even think anything of it. I was convinced it was a bug, so I said to him, must be a bug, and antibiotics, which was the worst possible thing ever.
And I'll explain to you why we thought it was a bug, because I mean, growing up you were super healthy, you were active, you didn't have anything wrong with you, physically or medically or anything like that. No family history of illness, and So it was pretty like crazy when you got diagnosed with the autoimmune disease, you know, and I think for the longest time we both like just didn't want to like believe it. That's why we were just brushing it off to maybe being a bug or something like that. And also because your first initial flare up was like over so quickly, you know?
Yeah.
You went from, I think, passing blood and having like urgency and diarrhea and everything to like being so normal.
Yeah.
So it was pretty crazy when Iain got diagnosed, and like he said, we kind of misdiagnosed it just because I think we didn't want to think that it was anything bigger than just that.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
When we went to the doctor and it just didn't clear up, and we had tried everything like antibiotics, which made it even worse, and just, you know, got to a point where we were both like, there's something so wrong here. And I mean, I could see how sick you were actually getting. It started to show physically. You dropped weight,
Yeah, I mean, in that first flare-up, so after I had kind of been diagnosed with the illness, I changed my diet quite substantially. I went pretty much all plant-based, and in that period, it was like I lost 5 kgs within a month. And that's weight that, I mean, I came out of school weighing the same weight I am now, 75 kgs. And now, for the first time ever, I'm dropping like 5 kgs straight out of the bat. And it was pretty scary.
It was just like, we kind of didn't know what to do, you know? We were kind of like, and also when you got diagnosed, like, when they did diagnose him with ulcerative colitis, like, that's all they gave him was, boom, you have ulcerative colitis, here's a pamphlet, go and read up about it, and off you go. And the first thing I did was Google. I went on and I just like started researching, and I knew what it was, but I didn't know like how it came about, or, you know, is there a cure for it, which they haven't found one yet.
No.
And they also cannot
Tell you what it's caused by.
What it's caused by, but
Yeah.
a lot of kind of articles and things we've read and research we've done is most of it is caused by stress.
Yeah.
A lot of it by stressful situations, living a high stressful life, or, you know, there's no actual pinpoint to saying like this is what it's from. But it was just such a like surreal thing, you know, like we had to really stop and like just kind of take it day by day, because
like reevaluate everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because there was also that kind of fear of, how am I gonna handle this and be on tour? How am I gonna handle this and travel? How am I gonna, you know, like go about my daily life? Because honestly, like, I didn't realize how bad it was for Iain, but I've soon came to realize that whenever we'd go out, he'd just be flooded with anxiety because he wouldn't know if there was a toilet nearby. He wouldn't know if he could make it to the toilet, you know? Like, I didn't realize how bad it was for you until you told me.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's not like it's the kind of disease where you like go around telling people that you need to go to the toilet all the time, and that's the one thing that I think I had to kind of work through, was just being okay with telling people that, you know, I've got an issue where I get like chronic diarrhea for weeks on end, you know, and not feel ashamed about it, because it's not something to feel ashamed about, but at the same time, it's like not a hot topic for, you know, around with your mates or at friends' places or anything else.
You being a freaking like world champ, professional athlete, like, you know, people see from the outside, people see you as like this fit, healthy, like go-getter kind of guy, but like meanwhile you're struggling with ulcerative colitis, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I knew that was such an issue for you to talk about, and it kind of did a lot of damage when you just kept it inside.
For sure.
And I think you've started like opening up about it and been like, okay, well, it's part of my life now. It might not be great, but it is part of me, and I think you've really like started accepting it, and hopefully maybe you're able to help somebody else dealing with it.
Definitely. I mean, it's like, you know, I wouldn't say I've tried everything, but I've been as close as possible to trying everything. You know, Rosie and I, we've had many discussions on this whole thing, and you know, I've tried most diets out there. I've gone plant-based, I've gone, you know, vegetarian. I've tried somewhat of a vegan diet at the beginning for about 2 weeks, which didn't work for me. And then, you know, now I'm on a more keto diet, which is probably the complete opposite to where I started. And I don't really eat any carbs at the moment. I've stopped, as of 2 days ago, I've kind of stopped eating carbs and kind of just really fixated on trying to get my body healthy and fit. And just on a side note, when we talk about the competitions, it was quite funny because a lot of people don't know this, but in the year that I ended up winning my world title in 2017, the entire South American leg, where I went to 3 different events in 6 weeks, and throughout all 3 of those events, I was running to the toilets, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a day, you know, passing blood through my stool, and a bunch of other things. Like, you know, I was completely eating the wrong foods. I didn't know what was going on. It was only after that trip that I actually got diagnosed. But just to say that, it's like, it's crazy to think of what I actually was able to achieve in that time when I was as sick as I've ever been, and not knowing what's going on with my body.
Yeah.
So, you know, in saying that, I did 3 podiums. I got a 3rd in Brazil, a 2nd in Antofagasta, and then I think I got like a 4th in Arica that year. So, you know, that's quite like, when I think back to it, I'm like, shit, I really put my body through a lot of stress and under a lot of pressure. And I was as sick as I've ever been and still competing at that high level. You know, it's like, why can't I just get rid of this thing? And it's I wish it was as easy as that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 3 years now, and for sure there's been times it's been better. And, you know, I think before this lockdown period, it might have been really good. I think that's the best you felt for a while now. And I just kind of want to talk about, like, why you think this whole ulcerative colitis came about for you. And, you know, like, I think it's different for every single person struggling there. I mean, they might have their own reasons why it came up for them, but I think I know specifically why yours came about. But yeah, let's just talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, growing up, my parents were never really super well off. We had nice cars, we lived in a really nice place, but, you know, when my parents eventually divorced, it was obviously through a lot of heartache, and they were trying to make it work, and it just wasn't working. And eventually my dad's business got liquidated, and in this time my parents really struggled financially. And, you know, I think I was only 5, 6, 7 years old, somewhere around there, and I can clearly remember them just like continuously arguing about you know, the financials and how the business is going to stay running, and all these kind of issues that were building up between my mom and my dad and for the whole family. And eventually when my parents split, I moved in with my mom and my brother, and my dad ended up living by himself, and we went to see him every second weekend. And, you know, it was quite a normal divorce that happened, and what we got out of it. But the one thing that really stuck with me is both my parents couldn't open up bank accounts because of the situation that they were in financially. And through all of this, you know, my mom was really struggling, but she's still providing for us and putting that money aside every month and trying to, you know, give us a good life and not trying to stress us out. But at the same time, she was just working herself to the bone and when I think back on moments like that, that financial stress that they were under was, I've seen that, and now that I watch my mom work so hard for the money that she has, I think it's like, I think we all so worried about being financially unstable and not having enough money in the bank. And when moments like this pop up where, I'm under a bit of financial stress, or, I'm struggling a little bit to pay for my car engine that ended up blowing up, or, just under a little bit of pressures here and there, that's when my real flare-ups start. And I'm not putting any blame onto my parents or what happened with them, because they're not to blame. But at the same time, I think this is the root cause, because it seems like every time that those financial stresses come, that's when I end up with these flare-ups, and the stress ends up going straight to my stomach, and that's where, my body just starts fighting itself. And this is the kind of stuff that, a lot of people don't know about me, and I don't think I've ever told anyone about this. So it's quite, it's quite revealing for the person I am and where I've grown up and how I've come about. But at the same time, I think it's important to let people know that, it's not all rainbows and sunshine this side of the hill. And I just want to, if there's anyone else out there that's battling with ulcerative colitis or Crohn's or anything like that, where, you're under a lot of pressure and or stress
in general.
You just need to kind of find someone that you can talk to. And I've been lucky enough to have really, really close friends that I've been able to discuss this with, and talking about it with Rosie a lot is huge, and my parents. And it's just such a big thing that I think getting your thoughts out of your head and spoken to someone is way more productive than just keeping them up inside and just festering inside you.
I know from experience and from, what I used to do in the past is I just kind of push everything down and
bottle it up.
Exactly. And I wouldn't really want to make my stresses or my problems somebody else's by telling them.
Yeah.
But as soon as I speak about them, like half of that stress is already gone, you know? Because what happens is when you have a stress or you've got this thing in your mind constantly replaying, it becomes so much bigger than what it actually is.
Or what it needs to be.
Yeah. And by like voicing that stress or that thought or whatever's going on inside of you, you've kind of exposed it, You've kind of like opened it up.
You've opened the bottle back up and you're going to let it flow.
And it's like, we spoke about it this morning, actually. There was like a situation that I was struggling with, linking back to my eating disorder, and I was super embarrassed about it. And it was, I'll tell you what it was. It was binge eating. I used to like severely binge because of my restriction habits, and I was pretty embarrassed about it. It's not a nice thing to talk about, the same as yours. You don't enjoy talking about it, but as soon as I opened up and just told Iain about it, I honestly have not binged since. And I'm not lying. I have not binged since, because it was kind of like that like secret of mine. And the moment I exposed it, it kind of had no power over me, So I know Iain is like such a private person, because we're coming up on 4 years together, and I think only like in the last couple of months have you started opening up and really talking about like what's going on inside.
Yeah.
And that might be with your tour issues, how you feel on tour, like when you're competing, or
old friends,
or anything that's bothering him. He would never tell me about it. I'd have to like suck it out of you,
And it's also like I feel, I've spoken to my mom and dad about this, and apparently my dad does this a lot, where you kind of close off to people and you don't explain exactly what's going on. And it's so detrimental, I think, to relationships. In order, like, if the other person can suck this stuff out, like I do it to Rosie all the time, and I know it frustrates her, but
it pisses me off, hey?
And I dig in there, and I just dig and dig and dig until she cracks, and then I know, okay, there was an issue, and I know there's an issue from the start. That's why I do it. But as soon as she cracks, I know that the whole relief is just so good, and I think that's the kind of thing that's so refreshing to do. I mean, it doesn't have to be your partner or your best friend or your parents, or maybe just going. I mean, I know I've gone to see someone for my sports psychology purposes, and Rosie's gone to see someone for her eating disorder purposes, and just going and seeing that person, it's so emotionally draining, but the next day when you wake up, you feel like everything has been lifted off your shoulders.
I honestly wish that every single person can experience therapy. Because for me, for the longest time, I thought, oh, you only go to therapy if you have, like, problems.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's made out to be like.
But unfortunately, we all have issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so necessary to talk about your problems, because if not, it festers into an eating disorder, it festers into ulcerative colitis, which it did for us. I mean, I know how my anorexia came about, and you know how your ulcerative colitis came about.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think that, like, you just feel the need to have to bottle everything up, because I think it stems back to, like, what's out in the media again. Social media. Like, you especially are such a big presence in the bodyboarding world that you feel pressure to portray a perfect life.
For sure. Yeah.
And to be on top of your game the whole time, because you've got a world title to your name, because you've podiumed events, because you've won events, there is that pressure. I mean, I think every, like, little kid that's bodyboarding and knows you, or even Tristan, or even whoever else is on tour, like, you all feel that pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, if I see what goes into social media on your end of things, I'm like, shit, that is so much pressure.
Yeah.
You can't, like, keep up this, like, amazing profile all the time. You're only human, and I think it's so hard to kind of deal with that pressure, plus then you're putting other pressure on yourself, plus you've got world tour event pressure, which I know you do pressure yourself for.
Yeah.
And again, the financial stress comes in there, because
it's sponsors,
it's paying for your events, it's, am I going to win money at this event? I need to win money at this event, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just this whole, like, thing that starts building on top of each other, and eventually it comes out in a flare-up.
For sure. And that's basically what I've had to deal with. And it's been hard to kind of, like, know that this is the issue and not
just recognize that that's the issue.
Exactly. And that's where I've really been kind of struggling for a long time with that.
And it's also, for me, it's like, just not comparing it to my eating disorder, but for me it's like, I'm doing this to myself.
Yeah.
If I go back into my old habits, my old ways of doing things, my restriction, my exercising, my just, like, obsessive behavior, I'm just doing it to myself. I know I'm strong enough, and I've got the support behind me to work through my issues every single day, and you're the same, Like, if you just recognize that, okay, shit, I'm putting so much pressure on myself right now, I know what happens when I'm stressed or, just not comfortable with what's going on around me. Like, you're only just doing it to yourself, and I know it's easier said than done, believe me. Like, we've been through some times where it's just been like, how the hell are we going to make it through this? But if you think back, you're like, half the amount of stress I was feeling, I didn't even need to feel in that time, And I think that'll hit home for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, outside there, it's a really stressful world right now,
But I think the biggest thing too is, like, I always get so worked up and so worried about You know,
the future.
Yeah, the future plans that I have, without even just thinking to myself, you know, there's always that living in the now, and it's way easier said than done. But like I look back on it and I'm like, why the hell was I so worried?
But
like
legit,
everything just works itself out.
That's all we can control is how we are, you know, functioning right now.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself of that all the time. I mean, recently, like, my job's been affected with the COVID-19, and it's put me into, like, freaking overdrive stress, you know? And I've just got to be kind of patient and know that things will change again. Like, I cannot worry about what's going to happen next week because I'm not psychic. Like, I can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's... And that is way easier said than done. Believe me, I'm a freaking, like, if it comes to stressing about the future, like, my name's there. But it's just, like, the more you talk about it, the more you realize, like, holy shit, we are just, like, people walking around with, like, so much unnecessary stress, you know? Like, I think about my situation right now, and there's people out there that have lost their jobs completely, and here I am stressing about, like, oh, my hours have been cut, or, you know, I'm getting half my salary. But, like, then I think, shit, there's people out there that aren't getting a salary anymore, you know? Like, it just, the more you keep it to yourself and, like, you don't talk about it, this thing just starts festering inside of you, and your mind starts playing tricks on you, and your mind is so powerful.
Scary.
I mean, if I can only tell you what my mind has done to me, you know, it's crazy. So just kind of want to touch on the diets we've tried with ulcerative colitis, and why, in your opinion, like, what you read online is kind of almost, I'm going to say it, bullshit.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, it's worked for some people.
It's helpful to kind of know what is happening, and there's definitely key foods that I believe every ulcerative colitis person needs to avoid.
Yeah.
And those are kind of universal, and those would be
your dairies and your glutens.
Your dairies and or processed dairy and gluten, and, you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't even go as far as to say it. I mean, I feel all gluten is detrimental in that aspect.
Yeah.
Like I was eating some low carb rolls recently, which sounds ridiculous, but we found these people down in Gordons Bay, too. And I was eating
enjoyable.
these. Yeah, they are so tasty. The bread loaves look exactly the same as normal bread, and it's all made from ground down seeds and all the rest. And I was just, you know, that's going a bit off topic, but I was still eating those kind of rolls and stuff, but avoiding gluten at all costs, no matter what. And it's scary when you start reading the back of packagings and different sauces and spices and the gluten amount or the sugar amount, or, you know, just the amount of processed goods inside of that product it's scary to think that we've been eating like that for so long, and it takes something so serious like a medical condition for you to actually stop and look at it. And for me, starting off, I've tried that vegan diet. Remember, we did the vegan diet for about 2 or 3 weeks when I started.
Sorry, just before you continue, before Iain had any signs or symptoms of, you know, ulcerative colitis, like, your diet was pretty basic. You ate pretty much like what
everything.
any other person out there would eat, you know, ate from all the food groups, ate carbs.
Pizzas, pastas.
Okay, let me tell you, this man has an appetite of a lion, and I was like, the only way I'm going to fill you up is carbs. Yeah. Rice, pasta, bread. I mean, that's just going to keep you full, you know?
That was my staple growing up, and it was my staple until the ulcerative colitis started.
And I mean, you were thriving.
I was thriving. I was absolutely fine. Maybe I didn't train maybe as much as I needed to at times, but I mean,
We both had a bit of a chubby,
it was
chubby time in between,
for sure.
Our last 4 years.
I've picked up weight, I've lost a hell of a lot of weight, but at the most part, I think I was super healthy before this all started.
Yeah, and I know, like, thinking back, I had severe digestive issues coming from, my past, but, like, I'd always be so jealous because, like, Iain would eat this amazing bread and, like, these pastas and stuff, and I've avoided gluten for, it's been a couple of years now.
6 years?
Yeah,
5 years, 6
so,
years.
I just always be like, he's like my spirit animal, I'm just gonna make these like crazy food dishes and he's gonna eat them and I'm just gonna like live through that, know. And when
that all came to a grinding halt.
Yes, when you got diagnosed, we were like, okay, first thing, let's go Google what you can eat, and it was pretty crazy.
But a lot of the research pointed towards a plant-based or vegan diet.
Yeah.
Vegetarian, let's say more vegetarian, because a lot of people were saying it's okay to eat eggs, and then there were some people that were saying it's okay to eat meat, and some that were saying it wasn't okay,
and don't eat raw vegetables, and
cook everything because it's easier for the stomach. No citrus fruits,
spicy foods,
no spice,
which is understandable.
Yeah, and no tomatoes either because of the acidity. So there was a few things that I just decided, okay, that's cool. Like I can avoid these. I've always loved fruit, and that was still fine to eat. Everyone was like, "Yeah, eat as much fruit as you can. Like, try to sustain your diet through that." And I did.
Alcohol also a big one.
And I ended up So the first flare up. After the first flare up, I was still drinking, still cruising,
still jolling,
still having big parties everywhere, and. When I was in Portugal in 2018 and the event was over for the year and all the events were over, I went and had my last drink that I've had since that day. And...
Was it good?
It wasn't. It was terrible.
Oh, damn.
And I had it with a massive pizza, and everything was good. And the next day I woke up and I was into a flare up. And that was the worst flare up that I've ever had. So, I wasn't.
That continued for quite a while.
That was it was over a year that I had that flare up. I never went to my doctor. I never got a colonoscopy at that time because I just didn't. My symptoms weren't changing. So whether they went in at the beginning of the year or whether they didn't go in at all, they're just going to find the same thing and tell me that I've been diagnosed and put me on a whole bunch of cortisone or steroids, and I just wasn't really into that at the time. And from there, the diet kind of changed again, I think, because it kind of added in meat, I think, for a time. On the second flare up now.
I remember when we were in the US, we spoke about this the other day as well. Iain was so sick. He was very sick then in December 2018.
Yeah.
I had just finished my degree, so we were both like under pressure, a lot of pressure, and I think like that year also wasn't great for you. That's
competition wise. Ended on a bit of a sour note.
Yeah, I think you put a lot of pressure on yourself that year because coming from 2017 being crowned world champ, like I know Iain felt the pressure that he needed to prove himself, showing that he was good enough to be a world champ, which is ridiculous because you are, and I'm not just saying this because we've been dating for 4 years, but I mean, anybody that's won a world title is so deserving of it, and I think it's ridiculous that you have to go in, which I know is only human. I probably would do exactly the same, but you just pressured yourself so much that year, and you still had an amazing year. You ended second, but I know it was like not what you wanted. And just after all of that, like I think your body just went like, okay, I'm safe. There's no more like fight or flight going on here. Now I'm going to just release whatever I've been holding on. And that's when he just got so sick. I mean, we were in the US and we couldn't really do much because you were just like needing to go to the toilet. You were
terrible.
weak. You were so weak. He was pale. He was skinny.
So another thing that people, I mean, I never knew this until my pharmacist actually told me. We've got probably the best pharmacist I've ever dealt with down here in the Strand. And he said to me, like, I was feeling so tired and so drained all of the time.
That's my mom messaged us.
Yeah, and, you know, I was thinking that I was losing so much blood that I should be taking iron tablets. So I was taking these iron tablets as a supplement, and it was actually causing more damage than it was good. And I ended up like, I was in such a bad way because of just these little tablets, and I think I was taking one tablet a day. And I was just getting worse and worse and worse. And eventually, Karen, Rosie's mom...
Crazy story though,
yeah,
how it came about.
She just messaged us. The pharmacist asked how I was doing. She said, you know, he's still battling. He's been taking these iron tablets. And he said, why the hell is he taking iron tablets? Get him off the iron tablets.
I mean, disclaimer, for some people, it works wonders.
Yeah, for sure.
For Iain,
for me, not so much. And yeah, I ended up, you know, getting off the iron tablets. And I think it was like 2 days later, like the relief was just unbelievable.
Mm.
And those iron tablets that were making me like gassy and make my stomach hurt, and it was just, I was bloated and feeling down and sick. And and the other thing that I was going to say too is ulcerative colitis is known to give a vitamin B deficiency.
Huge one.
So, and I've noticed this quite severely, like especially while I'm home. You know, I wake up here in the mornings, I'm so tired, like I could literally just go straight back to bed. And, you know, I go and get vitamin B injections, and it's a vitamin B complex that I get. And just the injection, I do it once a week for 6 weeks, and then once every month that you need past that. And ever since I've been doing that, it's like energy levels just spike again. And because it's straight into your system, you're not trying to get it through food or through certain vegetables or meats or whatever else, and it's just straight into your system. And it's like, you know, it's like someone just feeds me sugar, and this sugar high just stays for a long period of time. So
if you're dealing with that could be an option for you to have your vitamin B tested first.
Yeah.
And check, you know, if you're low, and it could help you, because I've seen a huge difference. You're just more awake and energy's just up there again and all that kind of stuff. But getting back to like what we went through with diet wise, is what I wanted to say in the US was we cut down Iain's meat consumption quite a bit. Like no fatty meats, just the white lean meats, and it didn't really do much for you.
It didn't do anything.
Yeah, okay.
Let's be honest.
It didn't do anything for you. But you know, then we kind of re-evaluated, and I read up about, or I follow somebody that's dealing with ulcerative colitis and is currently eating a carnivore-based diet and has managed to put herself into full remission. And by no means am I advocating that this is going to save your life, because I don't know. But the thing that did make such a big difference for Iain was eliminating fiber.
Yeah, so this is actually, it's brilliant, because I had actually forgotten about this, but this was maybe the biggest turning point that I've had with this illness was what we did with this next diet. And for anyone that understands different diets or knows about all these different diets, I went from being on quite a high fiber diet.
Yeah, lots of whole foods like fruits and veggies.
Yeah, it was never anything.
No gluten.
It was never like any processed goods.
Yeah, no, like
I was eating pretty good.
Yeah, you were eating a healthy, good diet, but it just wasn't giving you energy. Nothing was changing.
And so I said to Rosie, after eating a full bowl of chia seeds in the morning with all this
Portugal.
Yeah, in Portugal, I had like all these fruits, and I had like 4 different fruits and this big bowl of nuts, and it was like I look back and I'm like, why the hell was I doing this? And I'd finish this bowl and then like instantly feel my stomach like starting to turn. And basically, I just started eliminating fibers from my diet. And eliminating all these fibers meant that my urgency and the need for me to go to the toilet was so much less than before. Because before, my stomach was getting aggravated by the fiber, and I'm needing to go 3-4 times a day.
Yeah, and there's a lot passing through your system. I mean, scraping that intestine the whole time.
And majority of those were raw. I was eating a lot of fruits, and not that they're that hard, but I mean when they
lots of fiber.
Yeah, when they come through that part of your intestine, it's a much bigger volume. I was eating a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so just like a normal. I was eating a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which was. I was eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which was, a standard meal for most people. And I decided then and there that I was going to try and cut the amount of fibers out of my diet and just, see how long I could go without eating like a vast amount of carbs and a heavy amount of fiber.
Yeah. And like within a week, I think you saw a lot of improvement in just your urgency.
Yeah, it was huge. It was crazy to see, especially in the mornings when I didn't eat those like high fiber meals, the difference that it had like on the rest of the day. Because I would only go like once or maybe twice in the morning before we left for the beach, and then the rest of the day I'm just like cruising like nothing's wrong. And I was like, okay, wow, this is working. And that's when we started to figure out some different things. Rosie then obviously we're starting on a carnivore diet, and we've spoken about the diets that I'm on, but currently now I am on a more keto-based diet, but turning to a more carnivore-based diet to see if it works. I'm not doing this because Rosie has forced me into doing it, like some idiot wrote on a message to her the other day, and I'm not doing this to help anyone else. I'm doing this solely to help myself and to see if this diet works. If it doesn't work, we try something else, and we go back to either the keto way of eating, which I'll probably end up eating like, because I actually really enjoy the fats and the meats. But if not, add a couple more carbs into the diet, see what happens, and try to figure it out, because that's as far as we've come. I mean, I've probably tried majority of the diets out there, maybe not as strict as I need to be, but I think I was pretty good on them.
For me, it's okay. It's not realistic for a person like you to be so zoned in or strict as I am, and I'm only that strict because I enjoy what I eat. I'm not forcing it on myself. But for you, I think it's super okay to be wanting treats and things like that, and we try our best to make it work, like limiting sugar when you in a flare up, because it is inflammation causing, and your body's so flooded with inflammation that we just like try and limit adding extra inflammation causing foods into your body. But we just at the point where we've got nothing to lose anymore, and you just want to see if it works. If it works, then epic. If it doesn't, then we're on to the next thing. But like Iain said, I mean, we've tried vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, just higher protein, lean meats. We've tried all these different things, and the best results he's seen has been from a higher fat,
low carb,
low fiber kind of diet. And I mean, do you just want to kind of fill them in on what you eat on the reg, just to give them an idea?
So basically what I have been eating, we might have to stop this. So basically what I have been eating is a more a diet based more onto these meat products. So I've been eating a lot of eggs, steak, a lot of chicken, and lamb, beef, pork, and then I was adding veggies in. So I was adding like capsicums or peppers and mushrooms, a little bit of onion and garlic at times, and then a sweet potato every now and then, not too regularly, but enough. And I mean, that was pretty much my day. I'd start off with some eggs and bacon in the morning. So the big thing that I was doing was I was fasting. So I was fasting until 12:30 in the mornings, other than the bullets that we were drinking. And then, we'd fast through 12:30. I'd eat bacon and eggs, sometimes with those low carb rolls that we were talking about, or just generally by themselves, as I did this morning with avocado and cheese. And then in the afternoons or in the evenings, we would just eat meat and then some veggies, and not really any starchy or high carb veggies, but just general veggies. And then some mushrooms or something like that. And that's basically been my diet since I got back from Hawaii, so for the last 2 months.
And we've also made a point of switching over to grass-fed meat and free-range meat. And I know it's a little bit more expensive, but we have an amazing butcher.
Yeah, Ryan.
Shout out Ryan.
Shout out Ryan Boone.
But that, for me, has made a big difference in my inflammation. Just, coming post, healing everything I need to heal. And we're lucky enough to get amazing meat from Ryan, and I think we were both just at that point of we need to be putting the best kind of stuff we can in our bodies right now. And
I think every single person owes it to themselves to do that.
Exactly. And I know there's going to be this whole thing coming about but it's so expensive, but I only eat meat, and Iain's basically pretty much having a lot of meat on his plate at night, and a few veggies. So for us, it makes sense to spend that little bit more and buy the better quality meat, So we just Iain's kind of at that point where it's I have the time to really focus on this now, and this is kind of just what we're doing and what we're trying. And for me, being somebody who's watched him struggle through this is the best I've seen you been for quite some time now. Yes, you've had pressure and stress, and there's been a bit of a flare-up and all that kind of stuff, but you've kind of just accepted that this is part of your life now, and by doing that, you kind of implementing things that are helping you. And, by no means are we saying a keto diet's going to solve your problem if you have ulcerative colitis, but for Iain it worked. And a lot of things we've read, some people can eat bread and be fine, some people can eat nuts and be fine, some people can eat, I know with my grandmother, she could eat the craziest stuff and Iain would eat it and he would have an instant flare-up. So for everyone it's different, and that comes down to diets as well. I would never force a carnivore diet on someone, but it's worked for me, so that's why I like to talk about it and what it's done for me. But for somebody else, they might be thriving on a vegan diet, which is really cool, I've tried a vegan diet and it just didn't work with me. And I think it's so important to just be so in tune with your body and kind of listen to your body and
open to change too.
Exactly, and not be influenced by people. You scroll on Instagram and you're like, crap, this guy's doing this or this girl's doing this, and I should be doing that actually, but meanwhile it's doing more damage to me than by not doing it. So it's kind of that point where you've just got to self-experiment. They've given you everything they can give you in terms of medication and all that kind of stuff, and it hasn't helped that much. So the only thing we can control is how we eat, basically, and that's what you can control, your diet and the amount of stress you're under. So that's kind of where we are, and we've been super fortunate to be able to experiment like we have. And kind of try things. And I know for me it's been really stressful being a person on the outside and not being able to fix it for you. Like, as much as I want to just take it away, I can't. And I have to be that person supporting you. No matter how many times you need to go to the toilet and I need to go to the shops.
Yeah.
You know, sitting around waiting for Iain. But it's part of my life too. So it's really cool to have somebody else, you know, kind of go through life with you and share the like hard times,
The goods and the bads.
Yeah, and have that person or a person who you can talk to about your problems. So tip for the day is talk about your problems.
Yeah.
And don't let them become something bigger than what they actually are. So,
and I think we're going to end it there.
yeah.
It's been super cool from everyone's point of view to get their feedback on the podcasts that we've done in the past, and I urge you guys to please go and check us out. We have an Instagram, what do you call those? Instagram profile. We have a YouTube channel, so jump onto either one of those, leave us a comment, hit the like button, subscribe, follow us, and if you have any questions, please feel free to message either Rosie or myself, and we can help you guys as best we can. We're not going to say we can solve any of your issues, but we can help you to go in the right direction. So from me, I'd like to say thanks everyone for listening, and
I'd like to say I'm super proud of Iain for talking about this, because
thanks, Rose.
it was a big thing to talk about, I know.
Yeah, it is a big thing to talk about, but thanks everyone. We will see you in the next one.
Talk about your problems. See ya.